Welcome to MLB The Show 25. This is going to be one of the few times baseball will appear on this channel. Well, hopefully not a few going forward. But the team we have chosen for franchise mode this year is going to be the Toronto Blue Jays. A very fascinating team. And I mean, I went through the list of all the teams that we could have potentially done. You know, we could have gone with the White Sox or the Marlins or some of the other teams that you'll probably see a lot of other content creators end up doing for the big franchise modes here on YouTube. But the Blue Jays were a really interesting team to me, given where they are at this point in the franchise. And, you know, for this first video, I kind of just wanted to go through the roster, talk about everything, kind of the approach for this series, how we're going to do everything, because baseball is a lot different than, you know, football and basketball and you know, hockey in terms of how fast things progress. You know, baseball's a lot slower. It's way more of a grind. Prospects take years to get to the MLB, and if you're lucky, only a few years versus like 4 or 5 years. So there is a lot to talk about with this roster. But you know, the Blue Jays, they play in the AL East, a stacked division right now with the Yankees and the Orioles up and coming, and even the Red Sox, who are looking to make a big push this year as well. So the Blue Jays are just in a weird position. They last won those World Series in the early 90s with Joe Carter infamously hitting the walk-off homer to win the World Series. But the Blue Jays have a very interesting roster. But I think the biggest problem with the Jays, as we will see here in a second, is that they probably have one of the worst prospect pools in baseball. They don't have any A potential prospects in this game. Their best prospect is gonna be Ricky Tiedemann, who is a B potential 22-year-old starting pitcher. And, you know, for this to be your best prospect in your pool is not great. I mean, the position players are super weak here in Toronto. There's not really anyone exciting. A bunch of C potential guys that can maybe make the MLB if we're lucky, right? But you got Tiedemann at B potential. But really, other than that, you got some C potential guys mixed in here that are 23, 24, and even like younger, like 21, 22. But the Blue Jays just really lack in terms of farm talent. And, you know, it's really hard in baseball to grow and become a winning organization when you just don't have that lack of farm talent. Now, the Blue Jays do have one of the higher budgets in the league, clocking in around like $250 million or whatever. So the Blue Jays, with this series, it's as much as we need it to be draft and develop. If we want to contend right now, we are going to have to spend money, and we are going to have to outbid the likes of the Dodgers and the Yankees and a lot of those other upper echelon teams who are close to the top of budget. We're going to have to outbid a lot of teams to get some free agents here. So it is not as hard of a franchise mode as if we were like the A's or the Marlins or the White Sox, who don't really have a ton of budget. But we are at a crossroads in this organization to where you look at the roster and you're not saying it's a complete rebuild, but when you look at who they have, whether it's VLADDY Jr. and Bo Bichette, I mean, other than that, they really don't have a ton in terms of like the future core of this team. I mean, and we'll get into that later. We have some very, very, very big decisions to make regarding contracts, and you know, that's thumbnail of the video, and we'll get into that big decision coming up. And I'll just let y'all know we're not making that decision in this video. I wanted to pose that question to y'all and see what y'all would want to do for this series, because I mean, I guess we'll just get right into it now. The decision on Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s contract is pretty much going to determine the trajectory of what we do for this franchise mode. Are we going to sign him to the 13, 14, $500+ million deal that he's rumored to be wanting in real life? And the Blue Jays, as of a day ago, I believe I saw, they're coming to the table with like 14 or 13 years at like $500+ million, which is absolutely insane. I no doubt that would make him the highest paid baseball player ever. So, you know, it is a decision. You know, he's a 25-year-old and 90 overall. He batted .323 last year. He's coming off the best season of his career. 30 homers, 103 RBIs, .323 average. You know, he is an absolute stud at 25 years old. But, you know, we have to weigh a lot of the possibilities. Like, is it worth paying a guy that much money? Now, with there not being a salary cap, it's like, why wouldn't you pay him? But I mean, we do have to think about team building. Like, how good can the Blue Jays be right now? Is it worth paying a guy all this money right now when we're not contending? Which the Blue Jays are not really a contending team. They're somewhere in the middle of the pack. If we're lucky, I mean, I've already started playing just an offline franchise mode, and this team does not sim that well. They consistently, at least in the first couple of years, getting in the top 10 in terms of draft picks. So that's where the talent on the roster just isn't great. I mean, you're going to have 60s playing in the starting lineup the first season. So we're not going to make the playoffs. So really, this first season, we gotta hit on a draft pick. We really need to go hard with the scouting and just find the best players we can, because the prospect pool is horrendous. No pitching, no hitting, just nothing. It's basically just VLADDY and Bo Bichette and Santander and a couple of other solid MLB players. Like Andres Jimenez is an 82 overall with B potential at 26. So you hope that he can get a little bit better in his career. But, you know, there's not a direction with the Blue Jays right now. And I think that's the hardest part with looking at the Blue Jays, is like, what's the direction? And I think this Vladimir Guerrero contract is the kind of the deciding factor in what direction you want to go, because you pay Vladdy the $500 million. I mean, he's your superstar. He's the centerpiece of your franchise. And I think, I mean, I want to pose that question to y'all. I'll leave it in the comments below. Should we pay Vladimir Guerrero the 10 plus years, $500 million? I mean, it is a stupid amount of money, but you know, for a player of his age to be that good already, he's only 25. You'd hope he continues to get better and get into the mid 90s, but he can consistently give us 300 seasons or even 280, but give us those 30 homers and high RBIs. I think it'll be worth it. I think he's shown to be a consistent player at first base. You know, you play him at first, and it's going to be your DH or your first baseman regardless. So you kind of hope he becomes the David Ortiz of the franchise. You know, plays at a high level for the next 12 to 13 years, even when he gets into his late 30s, still a solid athlete, solid hitter at least. So that's the big decision. Are we paying Vladimir Guerrero Jr. $500 million plus on a 10 to 13 year deal? So that's what we ultimately have to decide. But now we look at the other big piece of this roster, which is Bo Bichette. Now, Bo Bichette's coming off the worst year of his career, batting .225, and you know, he's only a 79 overall now after that horrible year. But you know, he has every other year of his career, he's been very consistently good. You got like 300 averages sprinkled here and there, high 200s. So, you know, Bo Bichette is a guy we really want to, you know, have a rebound year. He only played 81 games last year, but every other year played in the high hundreds with good RBIs, good amount of homers in the 20s. So Bo Bichette, I still believe in. I still believe Bo can be a really good player in this league. So we really need a rebound year from Bo. And, you know, as a pending free agent, it's a big season for him. You know, if he has another terrible year, we're probably not going to bring him back. But if he can, you know, rebound and have a good season, you know, he could be right here to be a big part of our core, you know, for the next 5 years, hopefully 5, 6, 7 years. Now, Bo's playing shortstop, and you know that's his biggest shortcoming is his fielding. If I believe he did make quite a few errors, 7, 8 errors, which you want that to get better. I mean, previous years he was in the 20s, so you know, Bo is probably better suited to play second base, but you know, we're gonna keep this realistic. He wants to play shortstop. We're not moving him to second. So we're going to have to hopefully deal with Bo in terms of his defense, and that's going to be something we have to hopefully compensate for in other positions in the infield and the outfield. So, yeah. Besides Bo and Vladdy, you got Anthony Santander, who's an 86 overall, signed from Baltimore, first year on the club. You're hoping that he's going to be a big part of this core for the next 5 seasons. So you're hoping he can continue what he did from other years. You know, he batted .235 last year, but he had 44 home runs. He's coming off a 40 home run season. That's something that we desperately need in Toronto, is scoring some run support. So, you know, we're really going to be relying on Santander this year to bat in some runs. But in just terms of the overall franchise, how I want to approach this, the first couple seasons I'm probably going to take a little bit faster, not go a little bit faster pace, because I want to get through the first couple of years fast, build the roster, then when we get a better team, I'll slow things down a bit. We'll go in more depth. But for the first couple of years, we'll probably go pretty fast, unless we start doing really good and maybe we'll slow down a little bit. But I don't expect this team to be in the playoffs or even close for the first 2 seasons. So we're going to have to, scout really well, draft some good prospects, and then hopefully be active in free agency and bring some guys in. We got that. We got the high budget, so we're really going to have to win in free agency. And with the MLB's new revamped free agency system in this game, it's not a given just paying guys high money gets them to come here. So we're really going to have to, strategically play out free agency and build this core out. Because if we keep Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that's your core. You have Vladdy and Santander, but besides those two guys, you really don't know what your core is looking like for the future. And you have hopefully Ricky Tiedemann being a future starter, but not a lot of pitchers on the staff are lined up to be there long term. Kevin Gossman's got only 2 years left. Bowden Francis has got a lot of years of arbitration left at 28, so you're hoping he can grow into a potential number 1 pitcher. Jose Barrios is 30 years old. He's got a lot of money left on his deal, so we really need him to play better. But there's not really like that complete stud in the rotation that you're relying on. So you're really hoping that Gausman and Francis and Barrios can give you something there. And with the way this MLB sims, I would not be surprised if we ended up with having a good year, because this game is not, attributes matter, yes, but you can have guys in the 70s and the low 80s or even the low 70s do really well for you. So yeah, just a very interesting roster. I just wanted to introduce the series. We're not really I just wanted to talk to y'all, introduce everything, get y'all's opinions, because the Vladimir Guerrero contract, really is the deciding factor of what we want to do for this series. And if we're going to give him 10 years or 12 or 13 years, 10 to 14 years is probably what it's going to be. But, we can, that's the question is, do we offer him in a trade? Do we do like a sign and trade? We sign him and then trade him? Or do we keep him and make him the face of the franchise? That's the question that I pose to y'all. And, we'll quickly just run through some of the trade offers. Really, when I look at Bleacher Report and some other sites, comparing the different trade opportunities Vladdy could have, none of the trade offers really impress me. And, in this game, like, is it really worth trading Vladdy to a team like this, the Padres or the Giants, for just some B potential prospects? It's not really realistic. The only trade that is very intriguing is that the Orioles would trade Jackson Holliday, a potential 22-year-old, for Vladdy, and that could be a big trade, but that's the only one I'd even consider. But then again, even with a guy like Jackson Holliday, who's a potential 22-year-old at 72 or 3 overall, whatever he is, is he ever going to get to a 90 overall? And that's the thing. Vladdy is already a 90 overall at 25. Taking money out of the equation, we're trying to weigh, is the player we're going to get back in return for him ever going to get close to as good or can get there? And that's the problem with this whole situation, is because if you don't pay him and you trade him, are the guys you get back, are you ever going to have anybody as good as him again? And Vlad, you might not get somebody that is that overall and has good production for years on end. So it is a very fascinating question, but I'll leave it in y'all's hands. So let me know in the comments below for the Blue Jays franchise mode. Should we pay Vladimir Guerrero Jr. over $500 million over 12, 13, 10, 11, 12, 13 years, whatever we decide to do? I will leave a comment in the top, the pinned, and I will let y'all hear y'all's thoughts, because that's where this franchise is. That's going to be the deciding factor, is, what do we do with Vladdy Jr., and that's going to be the big thing. And Bo Bichette as well. I mean, I don't think we're going to extend Bo yet. We got to see what he does. But, Vladdy Jr., trading him or keeping him, that's going to be what we do for this franchise mode. And going forward, that's going to be the big deciding factor. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below on our big decision on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I'm excited to start this franchise mode and keep the series as consistent as I can, as I'm dealing with college and a bunch of other things and work. So I'm going to have probably a new Madden franchise out soon. So hopefully y'all ready for that. And then we'll probably try to get a couple the NHL videos going up again. So yeah, going to try to be a little bit more consistent in the spring and the summer, but we'll see depending on how school goes for me. We'll keep an eye on that. But anyway, guys, Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts on this. So anyway, guys, hope you all have a great day. Peace out.